We're ready to begin. Minister Hunter will give his remarks, followed by Laura Jones of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Then we'll open it up for question and answers.
When this government came into office in 2019, it did so with a promise to make life easier in Alberta, create jobs, and grow the economy. In January and February of this year, we were showing signs of growth. Then, in a matter of a few short weeks, Alberta was devastated by a triple black swan event, an unprecedented fall in energy prices, a pandemic, and the largest global economic collapse since the 1930s. Alberta's government responded with its recovery plan faster than any other jurisdiction in Canada. It is a bold, ambitious, long-term strategy to build, diversify, and create tens of thousands of jobs now. So what does this have to do with red tape reduction and our initiatives? Our commitment is to cut red tape in Alberta by 1/3 within our first mandate. Like Alberta's recovery plan, it is a whole-of-government approach that will help get Albertans working again. It's about reducing compliance costs for our job creators so they can get back to doing what they do best, innovate, grow, and create jobs for hardworking Albertans. Now more than ever, we need to double our efforts in red tape reduction. This past year, we established and met with our 9 industry panels. We've asked them to tell us how we can cut red tape so their industry can recover in the quickest way possible. Members of these panels represented core sectors of Alberta's economy, including oil and gas, tourism and hospitality, small business, manufacturing, forestry and agriculture, agri-food and bioindustry, and nonprofit and construction. Their input helped us make significant reductions already and will guide us in the coming years as to the work we need to continue to do to get Albertans back to work. Later today in the legislature, I will be tabling our first ever red tape reduction annual report. This report highlights that Alberta's government cut red tape by over 6% and saved Albertans over $475 million in the first year. The report's timeline showcases what we have accomplished between May 1st, 2019 and June 30th, 2020. During that period, every government ministry took an inventory of their own regulations, creating a roadmap to how we will achieve our goal of cutting red tape and becoming the freest, fastest-moving economy in North America. Together, we were able to establish a baseline count of just over 671,000 regulations. We know that you cannot fix what you do not measure, so for the first time in Alberta's history, we have measured. We have made significant progress in the first year, eliminating 51,000 annoying and unnecessary hoops Albertans have to jump through. I want to note that Alberta's government was also implementing a number of its platform promises during this time as well. Doing so meant adding some new regulations, about 10,000 in total. So our actual net reduction was just over 41,000 regulatory hoops. This is a significant reduction. In our annual report, we show a number of ways our success can be measured by dollars saved and by time saved. We also produce ratio of how effective we have been in reducing red tape. The ratio that we've been able to accomplish is a 5-to-1 ratio. For every one piece of regulation we added, we removed over 5. That is impressive considering this year. We set up the Red Tape Reduction Ministry under the Treasury Board and Finance Ministry. We counted all the statutes, regulations, forms, and policies in not only the ministries, but also in all of the agencies, boards, and commissions as well. We changed the culture within the government to have a red tape reduction lens and a mindset. All of this while fighting a worldwide pandemic and economic crash, something we haven't seen in over 100 years. My annual report highlights initiatives that make life easier while saving both time and money for our job creators and every Albertan. In total, we're saving Albertans nearly $500 million. When you look at the numbers compared to first-year results in other jurisdictions, we are doing 3 times better than those jurisdictions. We've taken action towards becoming the freest, fastest moving economy in North America, but we're not done yet. This is why I'm introducing Bill 48 today in the legislature, the Red Tape Reduction and Implementation Act 2020. The bill proposes changes to 12 pieces of legislation in 8 ministries. Changes to several acts will save time and money for Albertans and for our job creators. An ongoing effort since we took office in 2019, and a key part of this bill will cut red tape from the Municipal Government Act. And I'm joined here today by our Municipal Government Minister Allard. Overall, the proposed changes to the MGA will speed up approvals and reduce costs for developers, thereby reducing the end cost to home buyers. They will encourage development and make it easier for businesses to grow and create jobs in Alberta. And finally, it will protect unrelated seniors who wish to live together. This is also referred to as the Golden Girls Act, which is one of our platform commitments. This bill will also make changes to the law to better support and protect Albertans involved in the adoption process. Current adoption legislation in Alberta is complex and creates barriers for families wanting to adopt. These amendments will make it easier for families to navigate this process and increase the accountability of adoption agencies to parents. Bill 48 will also save the construction industry about $2.7 million by removing duplicative requirements for builders to have a building assessment report completed for condo projects. This in turn will decrease the cost of those who want to purchase a condo. It will also take away unnecessary headaches for people registering land titles. The significant reductions we've achieved in the first year of the Red Tape Reduction Initiative show we are applying a common sense lens to regulations. Reducing red tape is a critical pillar of Alberta's recovery plan as we emerge from the global pandemic, the global economic recession, and the decline in oil prices. Moving forward, we will continue to identify, reduce, and eliminate processes that cause regulatory and administrative burdens for Albertans. And we will continue to work with our job creators and all Albertans to guide us through these efforts. I encourage all Albertans to continue contributing their ideas. We are listening. Now more than ever, it is critical to get out of the way of our job creators so that they can do what they do best, create jobs and jumpstart the economy. We are on track to cutting red tape by 1/3 and becoming the freest and fastest moving economy in North America. Thank you. Now I'll turn the time over to Laura Jones from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business to bring remarks.
Thank you so much, Minister Hunter, and congratulations. Excessive regulation, as you know, excessive regulation or red tape is deeply destructive, whether it's an excessive number of rules discouraging investment that creates jobs and opportunities, or the complicated language on forms that makes us feel stressed out and frustrated and takes time away from family. Red tape is destructive. It increases prices, it reduces wages and incomes. Red tape distracts us from focusing on important regulation. Red tape creates stress and takes us away from other priorities, like our families. That's why it's so important that governments are committed to regulatory accountability and keeping red tape to a minimum. And today's announcement of a baseline count, 671,000 regulatory requirements, is a critical part of good public policy. It's about being transparent and accountable. And we need governments to be transparent and accountable around things like spending, taxes, and regulation. And for too long, regulation has been given short shrift. Today's announcement of the regulatory count changes that. And every January, CFIB grades regulatory accountability. Until recently, grading regulatory accountability in Alberta was depressing because essentially there was no regulatory accountability. So the province for the last decade or so had been earning a string of Ds and Fs. Minister Hunter has helped change that. Earlier this year, Alberta received its highest grade ever, a B-. And today's announcement shows, Minister Hunter, that you're not satisfied with a B-, and next January's grade will be higher. But as you said, January 2020 seems like a lifetime ago. We didn't know the havoc that COVID-19 was going to create. And if reducing red tape was important then, it's critical now. Our economic recovery depends on it. Struggling businesses and citizens simply can't afford the emotional and financial hardship of dealing with excessive regulation or red tape. We're hearing that loudly and clearly from small businesses in Alberta and across Canada. So I want to say a big thank you to you, Minister Hunter, and to your team for championing this important file. I'm sure at times it feels like a thankless job. I also want to express appreciation to the entire Alberta government. Hearing some of the examples in the annual report, it's clear that departments and agencies right across government are committed to reduce red tape to benefit Albertans. And examples ranging from amending policies that now allow restaurants and bars to sell liquor on patios not directly attached to them, to streamlining childcare applications and recognizing electronic proof of insurance, show just the breadth of how many different areas are being touched by this. Clearly, the government is listening to its citizens. Clearly, this is a whole of government initiative, and clearly it's saving Albertans precious time and money while reducing stress. So great job. Thank you very much on behalf of Alberta's small businesses.
Thank you, Laura. Appreciate those remarks. And now we'll turn the time over to questions.
Yep.
I just wanted to also state, first of all, that we've also got Minister Schultz, Minister Glubish, and Minister Copping on the line as well. This shows that we have this is a full government approach in order to be able to reduce regulatory burden. And so they're on the line here to be able to answer other questions if we need so.
So just a couple House rules. We'll do one question, one follow-up, and then just a reminder, we have Associate Minister Hunter along with Laura Jones of the CFIB and Minister Allard from Municipal Affairs, and on the phone, Minister Schultz, Minister Copping, and Minister Glubish. Thank you. Operator, you can patch through the first question.
Our first question comes from Michelle Bellefontaine of CBC. Your line is open.
Oh, hi. Thanks for taking my question. I wanted to know about the implementing the Golden Girls Act that apparently removes restrictive bylaws so unrelated seniors can live together. We heard this morning that there are no such bylaws in Alberta. So why are you putting in a law to solve a problem that doesn't exist?
So that's a good question. What we saw in Ontario was that there were bylaws in Ontario that actually restricted seniors who were not related from being able to cohabitate. And so this is actually a campaign promise we made that we would not see that here. And so this is fulfilling that campaign promise and making sure that that there's no restrictions that would stop seniors from being able to live together.
But there's no problem here. And apparently that in Ontario it was like one municipality. So doesn't this create more red tape by basically putting in an act to solve a problem that doesn't exist?
So this is, remember the Red Tape Reduction Implementation Act is removing problems. In this situation, we're actually making sure that those problems don't actually come about, which is, again, a campaign promise that we made, that we make sure that this is something that seniors can have surety in, and making sure that that seniors don't feel like this is going to be something that can be crept in the back door. We now have it in legislation that this cannot happen.
Thank you. Operator, can you put through the next caller?
Our next question comes from Lisa Johnson of Post Media. Your line is open.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I'm wondering what the changes around the rules regarding cadavers and donations to universities is meant to solve. I mean, what was the situation before, and how does this change create jobs or economic development, or I'm not sure how it benefits anybody?
Sure. Well, look, we're also cleaning up legislation as well. And I remember when I was in opposition and I talked to then Minister Billis. He was supposed to be in charge of the Red Tape Reduction Initiative. And I had said to him, I said, we're not seeing anything come out of your ministry about reducing red tape. And I said, is there anything, have you not found anything, any piece of legislation that actually is red tape, that shouldn't be there, is redundant? And he said, no, we haven't found anything. And so this is a classic example that there are pieces of legislation that are redundant. There is no need to have this anymore, this piece of legislation, because you don't have to mandate that that universities get these. They're actually being donated freely to these universities now, and so this piece of legislation is just redundant. It's not needed.
Lisa, did you have a follow-up?
I have an unrelated follow-up. I'm wondering if you can comment, Minister, about removing the requirement for builders to have a building assessment report completed for new condo and residential conversion projects. I mean, what would you say to Albertans who are concerned with the many, condominiums where there have been major structural problems and condo owners have been on the hook because builders or developers have gone bankrupt and there's no one to take responsibility for that. So isn't this taking away a safeguard for condo buyers?
Sure. I want to let you know, though, Lisa, that the reality is that these BARs or building assessment reports, they cost the average condo owner $400. So this is a report that is redundant to already protections that we have under the Condominium Property Act and the Safety Codes Act. These are, again, regulation is there for safety, but if it's overkill, we don't need it, then we need to get rid of it. And so we need to find that balance, and we believe that being able to save the end buyer of a condo $400, especially during the COVID, and they're struggling, the people are struggling right now, why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we go after any bit of money? $400 is a lot of money to people who are trying to be able to save for or to buy a condo.
Operator, do you want to put through the next caller?
Our next question comes from Kevin Nimick of CTV. Your line is open.
Hi, Minister. The new rules expand who qualifies as a farm worker, making them exempt from some labor laws. Is it fair to include staff at a greenhouse, for example, in the same group as a hired hand on a farm?
So this is not actually part of this legislation, but I will say that the work that Minister Dreeshen has done and Minister Copping has done in order to be able to bring back some common sense to the farm safety legislation has been richly received by farmers and ranchers, and also by farm hands. I've talked to lots. In my riding, there's lots of farms and ranchers, obviously, in Taber-Warner riding. And these farmers and ranchers and farm hands are telling us that before it was just handcuffing them and not allowing them to be able to do work. Farming is different than other types of work. And so the work that Minister Dreeshen did, I have to take my hat off to him, because I know I've talked to lots of farmers since we did the work. And Minister Dreeshen, Minister Copping, in my opinion, knocked it out of the park on that. And if you talk to ranchers and farmers and farm hands, they'll tell you the same thing.
Kevin, did you have a follow-up?
No, that's great. Thank you.
Operator, can you put through the next caller?
Our next question comes from Catherine Krakowski of Alberta Today. Your line is open.
Thanks for taking my question, Minister. I had a question on the methodology of the actual number of this baseline count, so the 670,977.
Yeah.
So is red tape considered any regulation?
No.
Or how do you get that number?
Sure.
That 670,000 number, all red tape.
Sure, I appreciate that question. That's a good question. The reality is that when we came up with how to be able to count, different jurisdictions count different things. In fact, Laura was telling me when we talked many years ago that the BC counted a little different. We actually took a look at some of the best practices, and BC was actually an early adopter to being able to get that count. And so I think that if they went back to when they started under Gordon Campbell, I believe, that they would have said, well, we should have counted a little more fulsomely. And so what we did is we took a look at what Manitoba did, what Saskatchewan did, Ontario did, and then some of the states, and we realized that the best thing we can do is to count all of the statutes, regulations, policies, and forms, and then also to be able to count not just in ministries, but count in agencies, boards, and commissions as well. And what we found, which is interesting, is that 80% of all of the regulations, all of the pinch points that affect Albertans, 670,000 of them, come in the agencies, boards, and commissions. And so we realized, first of all, again, we found out where the problem lies. Now, not all regulation is bad. We've said from the beginning that we want to make sure that people are safe, that the environment is properly taken care of, and that is the criteria when we take a look at what is considered as red tape. But there are so many pieces of pinch points out there that are redundant, that don't actually facilitate what perhaps they were thinking of in the beginning. And we kind of gave some examples of that today, in that some of the legislation that was done, a long time ago, it doesn't need, time. We're getting up to speed with the 21st century, and it's not needed now. And so when we took a look at how we're supposed to, identify what red tape is, no, we're not going to get rid of 671,000 pinch points. We're going to get rid of a third. And we've not just counted, we've actually cataloged all of these pinch points. And so we've said, okay, well, we believe that we can actually get rid of a third of those and still be able to keep the safety of Albertans and our environment safe and clean.
Did you have a follow-up?
Minister, I wonder if I could just jump in very quickly on that, your 1/3 reduction target, because British Columbia has actually reduced by almost 50% relative to 2001. And, I don't think anyone would argue that the environmental health safety standards have suffered as a result of that. And small businesses say that about a third is definitely doable. So it's, you're absolutely right. It's about targeting that excessive regulation or the red tape and making sure that we can preserve and protect those necessary rules. And government regulators, by the way, who I know you've engaged very heavily in this process, tend to be very good at that, at identifying where the excessive red tape is and where the necessary rules are and making sure those are protected. So I just wanted to add a tiny bit of commentary to your answer. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura.
Catherine, did you have a follow-up?
No follow-up. That's fine. Thanks.
Great, thanks. That's all the time we have today.
Thank you for coming.